So part of building really cool computers is that you need something to take pictures and videos of them so I could share it with you guys. So today we're going to talk about this bad boy lens. Look at the size of this. This is a mirrorless lens and it's literally one of the best lenses that they have out right now. So let's see if this works for me or if it's a little bit overkill. Let's get started. Hey guys, Tiago with Classical Technology here. So let's talk about this. This is the Canon EOS R and this is their 28-70 f2 zoom lens. Now, if you guys know anything about lenses and cameras, you know that f2 is really good. That just literally means the size of the aperture and how much light can come in. So basically in low light, this is going to perform a lot better than if something was 2.8 or f4, etc. So does this work for our purposes? I mean, I take a lot of pictures and videos, often close up of different computer parts and things of that nature. And this lens I did rent. I didn't buy this lens because it's ridiculously expensive. So I thought, let me see what the hoopla is. You know, I have the camera, I have some other lenses. Let me see if this lens would make my stuff just look so much better. I mean, that's often what we think. So let's talk about 3 reasons I really like this lens and 3 reasons why I don't like this lens. So for the first reason that I really like this lens, image quality definitely is top notch. I mean, it's unbelievably good. If you can get your settings right and everything, like it just looks amazingly good. And at f2, you're gonna get an incredible background blur or the bokeh, depending on how you're shooting your subject. So for that first reason, I really like this lens. And let's come to the first reason why I don't like this lens so much yet. Now, this is on the EOS R body, which is Canon's mirrorless camera now, their highest end mirrorless camera until the Canon R5 comes out, which if you guys have seen the rumors and specs on that, it's going to be absolutely incredible. So having said that, a downside of this expensive lens is that the camera body just really isn't up to the task to really take advantage of a beast like this. I mean, this lens doesn't have any built-in stabilization, and while the Canon camera does have digital image stabilization, it's really not like IBIS or in-body image stabilization. So it's really not that great for any type of handheld or run and gun type of filmmaking. So that's, that's one caveat there. Now, another thing that I really do like about this lens is going to be that f2 aperture. Now, most zoom lenses really max out at 2.8. In fact, last generation's EF lenses, they're all going to be 2.8, the 24-70 and things of that nature. Now, Canon's RF, which is their mirrorless line, still has those 2.8 lenses that they're coming out with. They call it the Holy Trinity. But now it seems like they're possibly getting into these super lenses, which are going to be f2 type zoom lenses. Now, this is going to be one of the best full frame zoom lenses you can get with such a low aperture. Now, if you guys have used the Sigma 18-35, that one goes down to 1.8, but as you know, that's an APS-C sensor. It's not a full frame sensor, so it's not really comparable to this completely, even though that's a fantastic lens, but that was also one of the most groundbreaking lenses when it came out, hence why it's so popular, because typically zoom lenses just don't go down that low. So that's definitely something I love about this lens. f2 just makes everything easier to use. You don't need much lighting. The bokeh and the background blur is a lot nicer. It makes it a really pleasant experience. And then now to the second thing that I don't like as much about this lens. And this one I'm kind of on the fence about. I understand why it's so heavy, but that's definitely going to be a bit of a downer for a lot of people, just because it is ridiculously heavy and it is really big. Generally, mirrorless cameras compared to DSLRs are supposed to be smaller and lighter. That was a bit of a selling point back in the day, but with this lens, I don't really think that's much of a factor. And now I'm on the fence about that because I understand to have an f2 for a zoom lens with such great image quality. I mean, I'm sure they did the best that they could, so I'm not really going to fault them for that. That's more just as a user experience type of thing. For me, I do a lot of stuff on tripods or something like that, so this may really affect people more that are doing a lot of run and gun, or they're out on the field and they have to be more mobile. So that's just a caveat to keep in mind. It is really heavy. It's definitely a very large lens. For me, it's not as much of an effect because I do a lot of computer stuff where I can put it on a tripod. But if you're going to get this for something else and you need to really be mobile, just keep that in mind. And the third thing I really like about this lens, I mean, it's a summation of pretty much everything. The build quality is exceptionally good. This is an L lens. You can tell by that red ring, and at this price, of course it should be. The dual pixel autofocus is extremely accurate and fast. I really like it. Build quality is great. Image quality, contrast. This lens just looks so good. Even on this EOS R body, which isn't Canon's best. I mean, we talked about the Canon R5, and when that comes out, I think something like that has a lot better technology to take advantage of a lens like this, that's when we're really going to see this lens shine. I also really like the control ring and the RF sort of lenses. EF lenses didn't have that. Basically, you can customize this ring. You have your zoom ring where you can zoom. You have your focus ring. Everything's very smooth, very nice. And you have this control ring. You can set it for like your aperture or even your ISO. That way, when you're sort of running and gunning, if you're going to do it with a lens this big, you can easily adjust it without having to use that little touch bar, which a lot of people don't like anyway. So that's definitely a neat little feature, but this ring is going to be found on all RF lenses, so that's not a particular positive just for this lens. And then thirdly, one of the downsides to this lens, and I think it's going to be a barrier of entry for most people, is just going to be the price. This retails for $2,999, and that's why I rented it first before buying it or even considering it, because it's ridiculously expensive. It costs almost twice as much as the EOS R body that I paid for. So now, having said that, if you're a professional photographer and you're going to get the new Canon EOS R5, this is definitely going to be one of the best lenses you can get for the system. I mean, everything that we spoke about is absolutely fantastic. The downsides are going to be the heaviness and the weight if you have to be mobile. The price is a pretty high barrier of entry, but lenses usually retain their value for such a long time, especially something that's so extraordinarily good as this. So now to sum it up, is this something that I would get and I think it's good for what I do? I came to the conclusion that I don't think so. I would be a little bit happier, I think, with the 24-70 RF lens, which is a 2.8. So it's not as good in low light, but that does have image stabilization, which is better, especially with the new R5 that's going to have IBIS. So you're going to have the 5 stops there and maybe 7 to 8 stops with the lens of image stabilization. So that's going to be pretty incredible. This one doesn't have image stabilization, likely due to the size and just being an f2, they probably couldn't fit everything in there. And another issue for me is the minimal focusing distance. This one's going to be around, I think, 15.4 inches, which generally this is great for somebody who's like a portrait photographer or a wedding photographer or even a landscape photographer. But for me, I just can't get close enough to computer stuff to really bring out the detail. I think the 24-70 has a much closer focusing distance, the RF version. So this is meant more for somebody who's doing maybe portraits or landscape or weddings, something where you can stand back a little bit. I mean, 15 inches isn't necessarily, that far, but it's really not that close either. You really want to get in a lot closer for computer parts so you can gather that detail. Even zooming in, I found that I wasn't really in that sweet spot. So I found that I just couldn't get quite close enough to get that minimal focusing distance to really bring out what I wanted. So I may try the 24-70 RF version, especially on the R5 body when that comes out. I think that's definitely going to be a better lens for me. Even though this is a fantastic lens, it's just a little bit outside my use case. And of course, one of the most interesting things about this lens is not only how it's going to work with the current EOS R body, but Canon recently announced their R5 mirrorless camera, which is an absolute beast of a camera. We don't know all the specs yet, but it is going to have 8K. It's going to have in-body image stabilization. So a camera like that is definitely going to fill in a lot of the shortcomings that a camera like this, the EOS R. And that's when a lens like this is really going to make sense, because then the caliber of lens is going to match the caliber of body. Right now, this lens is a little bit outclassing this. So I think that this lens, regardless of what comes out, is going to be one of the top lenses for the R5, for years to come. So just so you guys see the image quality with this lens versus something like that Sony, which is very popular. That way you get to tell a little bit of the difference, even though it's not ideal conditions, just because a 4K crop like that makes it a little bit more difficult to position the lens in a smaller space. So now this is going to be a little bit closer to what we had before, just because I've now moved to 1080p. 1080p, you're not going to have that 1.77 4K crop that you do when shooting video. So 1080p is going to give you that full frame look. Now this is 28 millimeters. The other one was an equivalent of 24 millimeters, so we're still a little bit tighter. Right now we're doing 1/50th shutter speed, f2, and the ISO is around 400. I have, the lights on me, so that's so you see the quality and how it is. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe, smash that like button, leave a comment below. Would you ever get something like this?